Most missing persons cases follow a predictable pattern. Someone is last seen at home, on the way to school, or outside playing. A search begins. Clues surface, interviews unfold, and slowly investigators build a timeline. But some cases break that pattern completely. Instead of leading toward answers, the clues point investigators toward deeper mysteries, clues so strange, so unsettling, that they raise more questions than they answer. Today we're exploring real missing children cases where the clues left behind were not just confusing, they were disturbing. The kinds of details that linger in investigators' minds decades later. The kinds of mysteries that make even seasoned detectives lose sleep. This is not a video about typical disappearances. These are cases defined by bizarre evidence, conflicting timelines, eerie behavior, and sometimes clues that feel almost impossible. Let's begin. The first case takes us to a quiet rural road where a boy's chilling message hinted at something horrifying, something he seemed to know was coming. It started with a note, a simple, short, handwritten note found inside the bedroom of a 9-year-old boy named Matthew. The handwriting was shaky, the paper crumpled, and the message only 7 words long. But those words changed everything. "If I'm gone, Mom, I love you." Matthew's mother found the note tucked under his pillow the morning he vanished. At first, she thought it was a childish message, maybe written after a sad dream or an emotional moment. But when she realized Matthew never made it to school, the meaning of the note took on a darker tone. When police arrived, they found no signs of forced entry. The doors were locked, the windows were locked from the inside. No footprints, no fingerprints, no struggle. It was as if Matthew simply vanished from his own home in the middle of the night. And then came the disturbing clue. Neighbors reported seeing Matthew standing outside near the tree line around 3 a.m., hours before anyone knew he was missing. But when they called out to him, he didn't respond. He simply turned and walked into the woods, alone. Dogs were brought in, but something strange happened. Every tracking dog followed Matthew's scent for about 300 feet into the woods, and then abruptly stopped. No scent, no direction, no sign of movement. As if the boy vanished into thin air. The note, the sighting, the sudden disappearance of scent, it all seemed too intentional, as if Matthew knew something was coming for him. Or worse, someone. Despite hundreds of searchers, drones, volunteers, and months of effort, no trace of Matthew has ever been found. The case remains open, the note remains unexplained, and the question still haunts investigators today. How did a 9-year-old child predict his own disappearance? Case 2. The boy who walked into the fog. It was supposed to be an ordinary walk home from school. 11-year-old Daniel lived just a few blocks away, and every day he followed the exact same route. But on this particular afternoon, the weather changed suddenly. A thick, heavy fog rolled in, enough that neighbors described it as unnaturally dense. It swallowed up the streets, the cars, the houses' visibility dropped to almost nothing. Daniel was seen walking into that fog and never coming out the other side. A search began immediately. The first clue was a single shoe found in the middle of the sidewalk, not thrown, not dragged, simply placed upright, as though Daniel had stepped out of it. A few feet away, a small plastic dinosaur was found. But here's the disturbing part. It wasn't Daniel's dinosaur. His mother confirmed he had never owned a toy like that. Police reviewed CCTV, but the fog was so thick that the cameras captured nothing but shadows. And just when investigators thought the case couldn't get stranger, a witness came forward. A woman reported seeing a figure much taller than a child walking behind Daniel inside the fog. She couldn't see a face or clothes or any clear features, Only a tall outline follows closely behind him. When she blinked, the figure was gone, and so was Daniel. The area was searched for days. Cadaver dogs picked up nothing. Helicopters scanned the roofs. Divers checked the drainage systems. No signs, no tracks, no trail. But the strangest clue of all came 3 weeks later. A box appeared on Daniel's family porch, unmarked, no fingerprints, no postage. Inside the box was another small dinosaur toy identical to the one found on the sidewalk. But there was something even more chilling. Wrapped beneath the toy was a piece of Daniel's shirt cut neatly, precisely, almost surgically. DNA confirmed it belonged to him. No other clues were inside. Nothing else was ever delivered. Daniel's case is still one of the most baffling in the region. And the image of that tall figure in the fog still haunts everyone involved. Case 3. The girl who drew her abductor before she disappeared. Sometimes the strangest clues come from children themselves. 8-year-old Olivia was known for her drawings. She drew everyday people, animals, trees, her family. But 2 weeks before she disappeared, she started drawing something different, something disturbing. She began drawing a man, a tall man with no face. Every drawing showed him standing in the corner of her room, sometimes closer, sometimes further. Sometimes she drew herself sleeping, while the faceless man stood beside her bed. Her parents assumed it was just childhood imagination, a nightmare, a shadow, something she saw on TV. But Olivia insisted he was real. She told her teacher that the man visited her at night and that he didn't like being seen. She also said something that still sends chills down investigators' spines. He says he's waiting for the right time. 2 weeks later, Olivia vanished from her bedroom. No broken windows, no forced entry, nothing taken, nothing disturbed. The only thing found was one final drawing on her desk. It showed Olivia holding hands with the faceless man, walking toward a door. Forensic experts examined the room. There were no footprints, no fibers, no signs of tampering. The house alarm never triggered. The only clue was the drawing, which contained one detail Olivia had never included before: a small symbol on the man's wrist like a tattoo. Detectives cross-checked the symbol and found it matched a locally used marking from a group of transient workers who had passed through the region months earlier. One of the workers, a man with a history of trespassing, had a faded tattoo in the exact same shape. When police tracked him down, he denied ever seeing Olivia or knowing anything about her drawings. His house was searched. His belongings were tested. Nothing linked him to the crime. No DNA, no fibers, no evidence of contact. The device logged a sudden altitude change of nearly 30 feet vertically before leveling out again, as if Aaron had been lifted off the ground. The symbol remains the single strangest clue in the case. Was Olivia drawing someone real? Someone she'd seen around town? Someone who had been watching her? Or was it all an expression of fear that eventually became reality? No one knows. Olivia's case remains unsolved, and her drawings remain locked away in evidence disturbing, haunting reminders of her final warnings. Case 4. The missing twins and the knocking sound. Some cases don't begin with a disappearance. They begin with a sound. Late one night, a family heard a rhythmic knocking coming from behind the twins' bedroom wall. Not a random noise, a pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, pause, over and over. The parents thought it was the house settling, or maybe pipes, but the knocking grew louder, sharper, and more urgent, so loud that the parents rushed into the twins' room. Both children were missing. The window was slightly open, but here's the disturbing part. There were no footprints outside. Not in the dirt, not in the grass, not on the windowsill. The room wasn't disturbed. Nothing was broken. There were no signs of struggle. The only clue was what the parents had heard, the knocking. But when investigators searched the house, they discovered something even stranger. On the other side of the bedroom wall, the one the knocking came from, was nothing. Just solid concrete, no pipes, no crawl space, no entry point, no access. A forensic sound analyst was brought in. He examined the wall, the acoustics, and the layout. His conclusion was chilling. The sound did not originate from inside the house. Search teams combed the neighborhood. Dogs were brought in. Helicopters scanned the woods. Nothing. It was as if the twins were lifted out of their room without touching the ground. And then, nearly a week later, a clue surfaced. A neighbor's home security camera, one facing a wooded trail, showed two small silhouettes walking hand in hand around 2:37 a.m. No adults, no vehicles, no one else. The children didn't look scared or confused. If anything, they appeared calm. But the part that disturbed investigators most was how the video ended. The twins walked toward the camera, still holding hands, and then both turned their heads sharply to the right, as if responding to something or someone off screen. And then they ran vanishing into the tree line. The forest was searched for months. Nothing was ever found. And to this day, no one can explain the knocking sound that happened seconds before the children disappeared, or what they were reacting to in that final recording. Case 5. The boy with the GPS trail that makes no sense. Some missing children leave digital trails, but this trail was impossible. 13-year-old Aaron always wore a small smartwatch with a built-in GPS tracker. When he went missing while riding his bike, investigators immediately checked the GPS data. The route he took was normal for the first 15 minutes, but then the data became strange. The GPS showed Aaron traveling 12 miles in just under 6 minutes. Impossible by bike, impossible by car. The route showed no stops, no hesitation, no deviation, just a straight, impossible line at a speed no child could achieve. At first, police assumed the GPS malfunctioned, but the manufacturer confirmed the data was intact, accurate, and showed no signs of corruption. Even stranger, the final GPS ping came from a location investigators couldn't explain: the center of a lake. Divers searched the area. Nothing. No bike, no clothing, no footprints on the muddy banks. The water was shallow, clear, and calm. If Aaron had entered the lake, there would have been evidence. There was none. Weeks later, hikers found Aaron's bike resting upright beside a remote forest trail nearly 40 miles from the lake. The bike wasn't damaged. The tires were clean, and there were no footprints nearby. Not his, not anyone else's. It was as if the bike had been gently placed there. To this day, the GPS data remains one of the most confusing pieces of digital evidence investigators have ever seen in a missing child case. The cases we explored tonight have something in common. They defy explanation. Children do not normally predict their own disappearance. They do not vanish in fog with impossible footprints. They do not draw their abductors weeks in advance. They do not disappear after mysterious knocking. And they certainly do not travel impossible distances in minutes. These clues, these fragments of evidence, remind us of one enduring truth: not every missing person's case fits the logic we expect. Sometimes reality is stranger, darker, and more disturbing than we imagine. And somewhere out there, answers still exist, locked inside these strange clues, waiting to be uncovered. If you want more deep dive videos into unsolved cases, disturbing disappearances, or mysteries that defy logic, make sure to subscribe, because there are many more stories like these. Stories that demand to be told.